Right. So, good evening, everybody. Great to see so many of you joining us on a Monday evening. This presentation tonight is obviously to help you with your grass pitch improvements. We want you to get as much out of it as possible, so please do ask questions when we give you a space in between each section, and please do use the chat at any time. But it is my very great pleasure to introduce Phil Kime, who is the Regional Pitch Advisor from the Grounds Management Association. So Phil, I will hand over to you. Thank you.
Nice one. Thank you, Carrie. Evening, everybody, and I hope you do take some useful information away from tonight's presentation. I just want to check that everybody will can actually see the presentation on their screen.
So if anyone wants to just unmute themselves just to say, yes, you can see it. I can see it, Phil, but anybody, if you don't mind unmuting just to say, yep, you can definitely see the presentation.
Yes.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to have a chorus of yeses now, aren't I?
Excellent.
Thanks so much,
very
everybody.
Much for that. I'm going to take my own camera off, so hopefully it'll be less interference on the internet, and it's not quite Halloween either yet, so I'll just bow out for a minute. So good evening, everybody, and I'm going to just run through this presentation on grass pitch improvement and basically your core maintenance tasks. So first slide, we'll go through. Basically, it's core seasonal grounds maintenance task and the best practice that you use to carry these tasks out. So first thing is, it should be basically straightforward for everybody. It's mowing. Now, basically, the primary reason we mow is actually control the vegetation height and to produce an even playing surface for players. The various means of doing this, but the predominant means are the rotary cut and the cylinder cut. The rotary cut, there you do give up some quality of cut in versus the cylinder mower, but the maintenance is a lot easier. The height of cut is a lot easier to adjust, and also any damage to your blade is also a lot cheaper to repair than the cylinder mower. So on the whole, at our sort of level, then a rotary mower would perfectly adequate. And the best way of mowing is sort of like little and often. You never remove more than a third of the leaf, and it's always mindful to keep that little rule in your head. So basically what that will mean is you're adjusting your frequency of cut to the actual growing conditions. So if you're at peak periods of growth, then you obviously will need to cut more frequently. And by cutting frequently and just cutting a third of the leaf off each time, you will keep the surface mainly clear of clumps. Now, clumps, if they're allowed to sort of gather, they can smother your grass underneath. And it's also a place where disease can be harboured. So you're probably better off either dispersing clumps or trying to limit them in the first place. It's important to alternate the direction of cut where possible. You can probably go up the pitch for your first cut, then across the next cut. The next time you do a vertical cut, come back the other way on your last cut. So basically cutting in the same direction will lay the grass flat, and it will basically create a nap. And also the grass won't be cut because it will be laid down. A cut at a height and frequency that promotes recovery, increased wear resistance and plant health. So you're aiming just to basically keep your height cut suitable for play in the summer, then you raise it in the winter or for dry periods. This will protect the grass plant, keep it stress free, and also give an element of protection to the surface. So increasing the height of cut can help to reduce the plant's stress, as I previously mentioned. Promoting root growth means increased access to water and nutrients in the soil, plus profile stability. So another rule is don't cut too short, because basically a lot of the plant's nutrients will come from a leaf. So the shorter your grass is, the less leaf there is, and less nutrients through photosynthesis will be available. So you'll have to input these nutrients manually, which is basically by adding fertilizing. But if you can avoid additional fertilizer inputs, it's a lot better for all and cheaper. So again, as I just said, that is more leaf means more food production by photosynthesis. Has anybody got any questions on that section, please?
No, there's nothing in the chat. Thank you.
It was a straightforward section, that one. Okay, next one. Aeration and decompaction. So aeration operations, although important, should take place only when ground conditions allow. So basically, if it's too dry, you risk damage to the equipment, and you also won't be getting the equipment into the depth that you're actually looking for. And if it's too wet, you can cause increased compaction and make a mess. So you will actually have like a negative impact on your own pitch. If you have resources and budget, decompaction aeration operation is likely to offer the greatest improvement along with adopting good practice. It's mainly a contractor service, and it's especially important where drainage is an issue or drainage system is present. So basically with decompaction, what you are doing is making holes in your surface, and that will allow air and nutrients and water in, and it will also allow the sort of bad air out, stale air. So you're replacing it with fresh air, and by also applying a bit of heave, you are creating like pore spaces into the soil, and it is into these pore spaces that grass roots will grow. So you can also improve the soil structure and texture when sand is added. So, for example, if you run a solid tine aeration piece of equipment across your pitch, then add some top dressing afterwards. Basically, what you'll be doing, if you can brush that soil in to the actual holes that are left, then you can improve the soil texture. So increased aeration, in summary, will promote grass growth through improving the soil gas exchange, which is obviously bad air out, good air in. Infiltration of water, you're taking water away from the surface and it can actually go through into the profile, pass through. The addition of these holes will allow a nutrient uptake. You allow the grass to like deeper root because you're creating more pore spaces for the roots to grow into. And if you've got longer roots, then your drought, your actual pitch will have a better drought stress tolerance because it can find water that is lower down. And it also breaks down in thatch, which is the sort of like gathering of organic matter at the surface. Punch a lot of holes in there, you get sort of like a lot of activity underneath the surface, which will help break the thatch down. Any questions on that, please?
No, you're all good. I haven't got anybody. Unless anybody want to unmute themselves, please do ask a question.
Can I just come off mute, Kerry? Is that all right?
Yeah, absolutely,
Right,
Del.
Del from West Essex. Just a quick one. When you say, I know it may sound like a silly question, but how wet's too wet?
Well, if you go on and you leave in like soil mark and like tire marks and stuff like that, or if for example, if your machinery is going across and you're creating a bit of water on the surface, we call it like a bow wave. That is technically too wet. Now, in fact, a few of the drawbacks of this is one, you will create like wheelings in there, you will indent the surface. A second thing is you will smear a lot of the surface as well. You have the potential there to smear your grass in like muddy water. And also, if you do some decompaction in those sort of conditions, technically what you are making is, rather than creating pore spaces in the actual surface, you are creating what are test tubes. So all that will happen is the water will fill these test tubes, and yet it will not go anywhere. So there's no real benefit into that at all. Conditions are very important.
Budget allowing, would you always recommend twice yearly? Is that maximum or as often as possible?
Yeah, twice yearly ideally is a minimum. If budgets permit, then you can certainly add more to that.
Okay, thank you.
No problems. Thank you. Should we move on?
Yeah, all good, Phil.
Nice one. Seeding. Seeding is usually a part of pitch renovations, but can certainly be carried out any time of the year, providing like soil temperatures are decent enough to aid germination. Some people actually do one overseed, and certainly what we recommend in sites that have a lack of irrigation is sometimes it's benefit to overseed just before the season finishes, and then have a second overseed with the other half of your purchase seed just before the end of summer. Now, the reasoning behind this is you are trying to make use of the prevailing weather conditions. Even though you're overseeding before the end of the season, and you will lose some germination, you will lose some grass. It's not as bad as if you left your overseed until sort of June, July time and then headed into drought conditions where you risk losing everything. And the price that grass seed is this day and age is not really something to risk. I mean, it's very expensive commodity now. So what we try and do is overseed with a light top dressing. That this is what you're looking at now if you're going into winter and you're thinking about sort of a mini renovation. Overseed with a light top of thin areas, and especially across goldmouths and stuff like that. Fork goldmouths up, get some seed in there, and then dress it. Cover if you can, and hopefully you'll get some germination before you go into winter. Soil temperatures are still there, so the more cover that you can take into the winter, the better. And it's usually a mix of 3-4 cultivars. We're looking at using typically ryegrass. Now, the characteristics of ryegrass are it germinates at quite low temperatures. It establishes itself quite readily. It's got excellent wear tolerance. It's got a strong, dense root system, and it responds well to fertilizer applications. Now, another piece of information there is ryegrass often has better disease resistance than a lot of other grasses. As winter takes hold, ground temperatures will drop. So the more cover you've got, the greater opportunity there is to bring grass on if you do overseed. And also, it's just trying to keep that grass cover there. So to keep heavy kit off the pitch in the wet, as we alluded to earlier with decompaction, that really does apply to everything. If it's too wet to take a mower on, don't take a mower on. You can cause more harm than good. It's good practice to keep a small supply of seed, and be mindful though that the seed does have a lifespan. The older your seed is, generally the percentage of germination will go down. So let's go back. So when you're looking at other types of grass, you've got poa and weed grass. They will probably be there in your pitch. They have a tendency to die back and leave dead and bare spots, and the same is poa also struggles in the summer. So as we alluded to on the mowing, if you can get some more ryegrass in your surface, and we do enter drought conditions, and you've got nice dry rooted ryegrass in there, your pitch will suffer less from drought conditions. And retention of grass cover is fundamental. It won't come back. You're basically on damage limitation as we head into the winter period. And as alluded to before, sometimes it's better to do nothing than actually do something. As hard as it is and as proud as we are of our pitches, sometimes it is better to stay away from them.
Just got Colin, you've got your hand up, so by all means, if you want to unmute yourself and ask a question, that's no problem.
Is that Colin Worcester?
Yeah, that's right, Colin. You just had your hand raised on the chat. That was all. No. Okay, lovely. There's nothing on the chat other than that, so carry on, Phil. No problem.
Okay, nice one. Thank you. So we're looking at localized repairs. Repair localized areas that may cause you issues through the season. Looking at those two pictures and the time they're actually doing this webinar, probably the returfing the goldmouth is not quite as relevant as the top one is. We will always recommend that you carry out ongoing repairs to your goldmouth, and hopefully that will stop any goldmouth getting like the top picture. So basically what you're trying to do, as alluded to in the previous slide, light renovation by hand. So a machine if it's a larger area, but only if the conditions are right. So for instance, on that top picture, you could get in there with a garden fork, You put your fork in, you'll put a bit of heave on it, and basically you drain that water away, and also that heave will to a certain degree restore the surface levels, but then the dressing and seed that you're going to put in there will finally finish off the surface levels. So you want good quality seed, which is perennial ryegrass, as we mentioned earlier, and also monitor the moisture levels to aid germination and establishment. Use germination sheeting if it's available. Germination sheeting is a good addition for anyone to have, really. I mean, the aim of germination sheeting is like a fleece material. It's not overly expensive, but what it does is it will keep the warmth in that area, and it also retains moisture, so it gives a bit of protection as well from any seed that you put down from things like pigeons. And it just gives your grass a whole better chance of like successful germination and establishment. So basically, it's advisable to try and organise work groups. So to not try this alone, and try getting a working group together. One of the things that often gets missed is after-match divoting. Now, after-match divoting, such a small task, is so very, very important. And actually a lot of sort of like overseeding and like putting divot mix into scrapes, and that can be avoided. People like go up and down the pitch afterwards, and a lot of divots can actually be knitted back in place quite easily. And then they will the quicker you can get to a divot, then the more chance it has of recovering. If you're doing like localized repairs, you can add a balanced fertilizer if you've got it available. Any questions on that?
No, nothing in the chat, Phil. Thank you.
It's going to be done by 8, isn't it? Flying through it. Nice one.
By all means, everybody, you know, if you do have questions, no question is a silly question. If you're thinking it, then I guarantee there's somebody else on the call is as well. So please do speak up if you want something.
Exactly. So now we're looking at good surface hygiene. Grass leaves do die off on a regular basis, and these will build up at the base of the plant. Now, the crown of the plant, which is just on the node soil, is where a lot of the sort of like air intake is taken. And if you're getting a build-up of like organic matter around this, then it's restricting your growth in a certain way. So grooming allows air all around the base of the plant to access air. Surface grooming using a chain harrow or tractor-mounted implement, just as you can see here, will help keep the surface clean and prevent thatch build-up. Now, thatch has a lot of drawbacks. All this debris that's going down there will, in effect, just create like a matting. And this sort of like matting that sits on top of your soil will restrict your pitch drainage. And it can also harbour diseases. You know, there's a lot of turf diseases can like be encouraged by thatch. So if you've got an implement like this pictured, which is an all-in-one turf groomer, you can basically look to rake and brush in the summer, and you can also be slitting and brushing to the winter period. The brush on this can also be used for dew and worm cast dispersal prior to cutting. And even though it's got a roller on it, we tend to not use it, as rolling in general is looked as pretty much as a no-no. So we tend to stick to very light rolling only. So once your renovations are complete and the need for aggressive scarification, which is the really deep scarification you see at renovation, then a gentle approach of little and often will often give a more desirable result. So if you're basically just running across with some implement just like this, just to keep tickling the surface, try and keep the surface open and stop thatch building up too much. So to keep a healthy grass sward, you will need to keep the base clean on a periodic basis, which is light raking and brushing, as alluded to earlier. And again, this is when conditions allow. Any questions?
No, you're good, Phil.
The turf nutrition. There may be a need to top up nutrient levels, promote grass's health and recovery. Be very cautious with the application rates, nitrogen content, and the release and the breakdown of your fertilizer. A slow or controlled release product containing a low rate of nitrogen, high rate potassium is typical at this time of year as an autumn-winter application. Feeding should take place if there are signs of nutrient deficiency, i.e. you might see your pitch yellowing off. It might not be the total cause of the total cause might not be nutrient deficiency, but it's quite a few times out of 10 that will be the case. You're planning light in-season works just to give the turf a little bit of a boost, and the grass is still growing readily. The application may increase maintenance requirements. This is not strictly speaking of this time of year, especially if you're putting on like low nitrogen fertilizers. What this alludes to is probably more to your spring summer applications, where quite obviously if you put fertilizer on, you might finish up having to do more cutting. And always recommend that you speak to your supplier for product guidance, and chances are you can get a soil analysis, and that is recommended because it is so important. Again, fertilizer is something that you are putting a fair bit of your budget towards. Now, ideally, it really needs to be some nutrition that serves your pitch to the sort of like best of its ability. So ideally, none of your budget will get wasted. So if budget allows, 2 applications. You look at a spring summer and an autumn winter. The autumn winter will give the plant what it needs through this period without excessive weed growth and the need for more cutting. It is advised that soil analysis takes place, as I previously mentioned. That is quite an important point, as no pitches are the same. Any questions?
Yeah, just quick on the soil analysis. We've had one done, and I took some action on the back of that.
Yeah.
How often? It'd be nice to have one every year, obviously, but there is a cost. We could only find one supplier that did that. Is there somewhere, without Google search, is there somewhere we can go to find, maybe somebody else who does it?
Yeah, and I think probably suppliers local to you will be the best place to sort of like start. I mean, I think it will be a Google search, and certainly the larger of the suppliers, they will generally carry out a soil analysis. And your question of cost and stuff like that, ideally you would want it yearly, but obviously you could probably get away with it every other year and stuff like that. If you know you're using the right products for your pitch, then hopefully you will gain a little bit of consistency there, and that will be what you tend to use.
Yeah, thank you.
No problems, thank you. Yeah, move on.
Yeah, no, nothing in the chat, Phil, so all good to go.
Best practice. So you're focusing on grass height, frequency of cut, and the conditions. Brushing. So you need clear dew. You can also print a pattern using a brush. It needs to stand everything up, and this will allow water in and around the sward. During peak periods of growth, cut more to reduce clippings. That's soil on frequency and the conditions. Raise height of cut for winter to limit damage, as we've said previously, and also to reduce stress in drought conditions. Now, standing grass up for better, cleaner cut, that's a good point to bring up. And also this is coupled with when you're sort of like cutting against your previous pattern of cut. So if you brush that, basically you're standing the grass up and you are allowing more grass leaves to enter into the mower, and you should get a cleaner cut and a more uniform cut. Post-match repairs, again, alluding to divoting, carrying out divots. If you can't get your divots to knit back straight together, then obviously a divot mix hand, fork, seed and dress the key areas. But I think you'll find most divots that you will be able to knit back together. Keep the surface open, which is alluding back to the decompaction. And if you've got access to a deep slitter, it's often two things that run side by side. So you decompact with solid tine aeration and a deep slitter after time and used on your surface, the chances are you will see those holes disappear, but they will still be there at lower levels. So if you have access to a deep slitter, then frequent deep slitting across the surface will again open the surface up to these bigger holes that you've made underneath. It's been mindful if you've got a heavy soil and deep slitting, you don't go past winter, because that creates like a weakness in the turf, and this weakness can like manifest itself as deep sort of like deep, you know, they will open out in summer, so you get a lot of cracking. So decompact prior to the winter months, and as I said, deep slitted available, and fork areas that are staying wet. Collect debris, keep your surface clean, check your drainage, especially if you've got like an actual drainage in your pitch. You need to inspect your chambers and also the outlets to make sure they're like clear and free from any growth and vegetation. Look for areas of holding water, and as I just said, so like fork these areas that are staying wet, see if you can move that water through the profile. And there we go. The same point that we go back to is knowing when not to do something is more important than knowing when to do something. It's all about managing the conditions in your pitch. Any questions?
Yeah, just got one in the chat. Just in terms of vertidraining, how often is best?
Let's say as your minimum, it should be looking at 2. And if you can sort of, if the budget stretches to 3 or 4, then go for it. But again, what we do tend to recommend is 2 solid tine aerations just before you go into winter, and 1 at the renovation. And I could also be coupled with something that we actually call linear aeration, which is similar to a deep slitter, but basically it vibrates. So you'll create a deeper fissures underneath, but it's done as sort of like a slip form rather than like solid tine aeration where you'll see holes in the surface.
That's great, Phil. Thank you.
So we'll look at what support is available to yourselves. I don't know if anybody's aware of the Hive. The Hive is an online community for advice, practice tips from GMA pitch advisors and groundskeepers. So there's 2,700 plus users. You've got regional pitch advisor interaction. There's maintenance essentials on most tasks. There are learning and top tips cards. There is funding and news signposting. There's also materials, equipment information, and another thing I find most beneficial for is like an interactive foreman. There's usually a link provided at the bottom of most pitch power reports, which will direct you towards the Hive if you're not already logged in and you remember. And it's a bit like a groundsman's Encyclopedia Britannica. For example, like the learning cards, there's pests and diseases and how best to deal with them. And it's an ideal platform to share your own experience and learn from each other with what worked, what didn't, and things to look out for. It seems to be very, very interactive, and there's a few people that come up with some very, very good tips. Questions on Hive?
I'm right in saying, Phil, I know with the forum, the reason it does work so well is just everybody supports one another on there in terms of other groundskeepers in other areas, kind of what they're experiencing, and yeah, there's a lot of sharing of best practice, isn't there?
Exactly, it's very, very good. I'm trying to think of one example. I mean, we came up. One of the questions I got the last time I presented was. What do we need to do with this weed? We can't get rid of it. Now, it was one answer that I did need to research fully. I mean, so I had to, excuse me, I provided the answer as soon as possible, but upon browsing for other treatments and stuff like that, the best answer was actually on the Hive. So I could just send across a link to that page on that particular weed, and it was a very, very, very in-depth view on how to deal with it.
I know, that's great.
There's also a GMA toolkit, which is basically like an essential guide to football and grounds maintenance. You'll find this on the Grounds Management Association website. And it's basically like a training resource that's aimed at like supporting volunteers and maintaining football pitches. And it's also a toolkit for other sports as well. Some of you guys may be part of a multi-sport place. So you've got cricket on there, rugby league, rugby union, and there's all sorts of like maintenance essentials on there too. It's designed as a tool to continue increasing the skills and capabilities of people and practicing future grounds volunteers. And the resource is free and it's made available to help clubs engage further with common practices involved in ground maintenance and to understand how to help get pitches ready for players and their community. Any questions on that one?
No, all good, Phil. Thank you.
Thank you. Pitch power. I'm sure everybody in here is already on their either just starting the pitch power journey or already some way down it. Pitch power, so it's powered by the Football Foundation. It's easy to use web app, and it's probably game changer really in mission to transform grass pitches. I remember when I first started as a support pitch advisor, we basically went out and I did the readings, and then I had to make a report myself by hand off that off the data that I collected, and that would probably take me 2 days just to service like one club. And then you think it would have been completely not competitive in today's thing. We're turning out a lot of pitch power reports, and there's no way we would have matched that. Since its launch in October 2020, over 17,000 grass football pitches have been inspected, and they've received generalised guidance, and their report is like tailor-made for their own site. So it puts power in the palm of your hand to seek guidance, improving the quality and performance of your grass pitch. And every pitch inspection will receive a detailed report produced by a Grounds Management Association regional pitch advisor, and we aim to get these to you within 21 days. Better pitches mean more opportunities to play and get active, which is hugely important to the nation's physical well-being. Has anybody got any questions on pitch power in general?
Just a, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I was going to say I'm 4 or 5 years into this now, and I find it very useful with the funding they give us. So we're kind of 5 years into it, started in 2020, as you say, and we're finding the information they give us is very useful, and obviously the funding is very useful.
Excellent. And can I just ask if you noticed like an ongoing improvement in your pitches? It's it's just gradual improve year on year.
Yes, no, certainly. A lot of people that come to our pitches, I have the equivalent of 11 acres, about 6 full-size pitches, effectively. And a lot of people come and recommend, look at the pitches and say, wow, you still got grass on it, and things like this. But we do, and the funding goes for vertidraining, as you say, slitting, all that sort of thing. It's not cheap. I mean, I'm paying up to £2,000 for vertidraining once or twice a year, depending how I feel.
Yeah,
that sort of thing. My only concern is after 8 years, it runs out. So either I increase the fees for all my parents to keep the pitches as they are and what I'm doing now, or I stop doing what I'm doing now, effectively.
Yeah. I think that's certainly Carrie might be able to
Yeah.
Give you a bit of comment on that, but that seems to be the $1 million question at the minute, to be fair. And it'd be,
Yeah.
you know,
Steve, no, I mean, thank you for sharing that, because definitely, you know, the clubs that have, you know, gone into this pitch power journey and then gone through into the grass pitch maintenance fund have been seeing some fantastic results. And as you know, kind of from year 3 onwards, you kind of have to start that, you know, progressively putting the partnership funding into the program. But yeah, like you say, kind of after year 6, that funding comes to a bit of an end. And the problem is you know, where do clubs go from there? It is something that we have raised. It's something that the Grounds Management Association and us as a county FA have raised to the Football Foundation to say, you know, what will be the ongoing support for clubs that have been in the programme? Is there a next step? Is there something else? As of yet, we haven't been given a clear indication on what that might be, but it's certainly something that we are pushing on your behalf as clubs, because like you say, you've got some fantastic results that you are starting to see, and what you want to do is continue that. You don't want to revert back, and that's certainly something the FA want to see continuing, is the you know, the good quality pitches, and you know, increasing that a better surface to play on, basically.
excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks for the input. I mean, another thing, have you also found that you're sort of having more insight into your own maintenance, where you look in one year and you think, well, I don't need to do any selective herbicide this year. I can save the money from the selective herbicide and put that towards more vertidraining, or put that towards more seeding. Is that something that you're starting to adapt your own maintenance techniques and practices and maintenance regimes?
At the moment, no, mainly because there's not a lot been done to these grounds over the many years we've had them. We've been going since '74. We've been in this area on this 11-acre site for about 20 years now, and nothing really has been done to it in like this sort of, you know, lots of weeding and feeding, you know, with seaweed and God knows what else, vertidraining, slitting. It's not happened before effectively in any big way. So I've just been throwing as much at it as I can to get the pitches up to a good spec. The biggest problem I've got now is they're now undulating. Looking at the costs of flattening a pitch is £50,000 plus.
Yeah,
That's my biggest, and I've got 6 pitches. So that's my biggest issue now, is the kids are running up and down, and then suddenly they fall over because they went down a down bit rather than an up bit. If you see what I mean.
okay, yeah, okay.
I think one of the things as well that Steve, as a club, you might want to consider, because obviously, you know, doing the works that you're doing, it is expensive to continue if you don't have the funding of the Grass Pitch Maintenance Fund. I mean, the Football Foundation do offer machinery grants of up to 50,000. So if there is appetite from the club to take on some of that works yourself as volunteers, there is that opportunity. Obviously, the funding is 75%. The Football Foundation will cover, and as a club, you would have to look at that 25%. But there is that opportunity to get some of the machinery that you might need to use to do some of these uplifting works.
No, that's very true, and I've actually partaken of a brand new tractor and a brand new ride-on mower over the last 4 or 5 years. So, I say, out of the pitch power report comes these recommendations. Oh, you need a new tractor, or you need a new ride-on mower. You know, one of the ones that have come out is seen the state of my lines after a few games. They're a bit wiggly, so they're now saying possibly you could go for a GPS line marker machine. You know, I'm lucky, I'm retired, and I can, you know, go down the ground most days of the week if I want to. But the onerous thing is line marking. I could be doing lots of other things rather than line marking.
It's something we get. It's something we get asked an awful lot, Steve. There is the opportunity to come in for GPS line markers. I think I'm right in saying, Phil, that if you're on a site that's is it 8 pitches or more, you can come in for oh, is it 10 pitches? Sorry, you
Yeah.
can come in for that, but any site, you know, it will be taken on a site by site basis. So if in doubt, give us a shout. Oh, that rhymed then. But if in doubt, give us a shout. We can always check with Phil and check with the foundation as to what you're eligible for. So that's no problem. But no, thanks for that, Steve, because I think it's useful for other clubs. Especially, I was going to say there's a few that are on that are not part of Pitch Power, and I think it would definitely be worth, if they want more information, please do come back to me on that, and I will more than happy send you information on Pitch Power, how we can support you with that, and get your pitches rated and get you some valuable information as to how to improve them. So thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Excellent. Great
Thank
input. Thank you.
Kevin, I think you've got your hand up, so please do unmute yourself.
I think I've done it now.
That's it. You okay, Kevin?
Am I live?
You are live.
Lovely, thanks, Gary. I'm just coming back on the line marker situation at our new ground where we've got a 9-a-side, 11-a-side, 2 7s and 2 5s marked inside the 7s in blue. We found a guy through our pitch contractor who does the robotic. First of all, it's fantastic to watch it. It's brilliant to watch the old robotic mower going around doing it. I think the cost of a robotic mower, I'm told, is about £50,000. We haven't bought it, but we're hiring the guy who does it, who's basically he's charging us about 150 quid to do the whole lot. I think we're going to negotiate with him to, to do a season's worth at sort of slightly less cost. But you know, it does beat the volunteer going out there every week, you know, for a whole day plodding around the pitch. But if anybody wants to come down and see this thing at work, or you know, wants to get in touch with us, then please do. But I think it's brilliant.
So we've just actually, just to add to that, Kevin, we've just had Martin in the chat say, is there an option for an area shared GPS line marker machine to kind of split costs? Again, you know, guys, if anybody wants to kind of use me as a go-between to find out if there's other people in your area that would be interested in, you know, doing a shared line marker and things like that, do get in touch with me, and I'd be more than happy to kind of put people in touch with each other. It's not necessarily something that we would purchase and then hire out to clubs, but it would certainly, you know, we could certainly help facilitate any clubs that wanted to do a share of a GPS line marker. All we would just need to do is do a application to the Football Foundation, and again, I'm more than happy to help anybody in terms of that. So so anything on machinery or the line markers or anything like that, please do get in touch. Everything, all those recommendations that come part of that Pitch Power report, they will have those kind of machinery recommendations there that Phil puts on, and there is funding that can help support you. So please do let me know. But there's nothing more in the chat, Phil, if you're happy to go on.
Excellent. That was a great bit of interaction from everybody there. That was fantastic to see. Thank you. Again, we're still on Pitch Power, but this is how your Pitch Power grading is ascertained. This, I believe, is mid-season. So the measurements you take when you're doing your Pitch Power is like height of grass, your actual grass coverage, the amount of weeds, the amount of bare areas, and basically you'll enter a value from there, and from that value, the Pitch Power app will generate the condition of your pitch, and as you can see below, it will either be basic, poor, good, advanced, or high, and depending on the grade of your pitch will kind of like depend on the grant funding available to you, and if you are already grant funded, then it helps you keep track of where your pitch is in condition and try and keep it in as good a condition as you can. Ideally good or above is the sort of benchmark we're looking for. And this brings us into sort of like our grounds management national pitch grading framework. The mission of the grounds management framework is for the natural turf sports surface to be maintained by appropriate qualified ground staff and volunteers to achieve the best possible playing surface. What is grounds management framework? Well, it's basically a system that measures the quality of the pitches and the skills required to achieve optimum outputs using the national established framework developed by Grounds Management Association. Now, basically, what this is basically alluding to is if your skill set is at sort of like lower level, basic level, then you can expect your pitches to come out. You'll be at sort of like a basic level. And as your own skill set improves, the more experience you get in like looking after your pitch, then hopefully your pitch will increase with the level of your education and experience. And then at the top, you've got the elite, which tends to be sort of like professional groundskeepers, like delivering top quality services time on time. That's basically all that alludes to. There's also GMA learning and training. So we have a selection of courses at the GMA for anyone that comes into sort of like machinery as a grant funding. Then you will need to undertake, or two people at your club will need to undertake the online level 1, but they're available all the way through. So if you actually complete like the level 3 online, you are some way to sort of like descending into professional qualifications. But as you go back to the previous slide, the more you can arm yourself with information and training, the better the chances are that your pitch will improve over time. And just in summary, to keep yourself updated with seasonal best practice guidance, focus on the possible and always ask, what am I trying to achieve by what I'm doing? So basically use the Hive, use the GMA toolkit, interact with fellow groundskeepers, and sort of like what budget you've got, what do we have? If you obviously people are going to be limited by funds and equipment, so just do what you can and do what you can do well. So reach out, speak to each other. Again, as alluded to there, the Hive portal we found tonight, a bit of interaction goes a long way. People are talking from like experience, and it tends to take the sort of like pin the tail on the donkey approach away, because there will always be people that have done what you are looking to do, and they've got the experience and they can give you the results that they obtained. So plan ahead, but always keep an eye on the weather. So this is especially true of like renovations. Hopefully we're going to get another online workshop going in time for February. So in that workshop, we're going to look at renovations and planning especially, and you determine what you're going to do, what materials you're going to need, and the quantity of those materials, and the cost of those materials. And then also, if you're going to need contractors, then you've got a chance to like book your contractors early as possible, because unfortunately, when it's at renovation time, everybody wants the contractor at exactly the same time. So if you're first in and you've got all your renovations planned and the contractor planned for a set date, then you're going to get the best benefit, and all the operations will be kind of carried out at the optimal time. And that's it. That's, if there's any questions on anything tonight, then let's go for it.
I've got just a couple of questions that came in as part of the kind of application process for the course field. So in terms of when is the best time for verti draining, and is it worth it, is one of the questions that I have.
Yes, definitely. I mean, as we alluded to in one of the slides there, if you can do something, then decompaction will be probably the thing that will display the results straight away. Basically, you are getting air into the soil. I mean, the grass plant is basically a living thing, same as us. It needs nutrients, it'll need air, and it needs water. So by decompaction, you're letting in the air and you're letting in the water, and you're also letting in the nutrients, so the plant has more nutrients accessible to it, and all the bad air that's in there gets a chance to escape. Ideally, Yeah, look at two. So you could, more critically, you can like look at just as we go into winter, as we're going into the wetter conditions. So if you can get your pitch will be nice and open then. So any rain moisture that we do get won't sit on the surface. It can immediately like drain through. If it's springtime, is another time you can actually do another verti-drain as you're coming out of winter, just to give it a kickstart, get more air into the soil again, and it'll give it a kickstart going into spring. And then usually we do like decompaction at renovation time. This is especially true for like probably more so for the people that have got access to irrigation when they're in June, July time. They'll do a verti-drain. If they've got drainage in there, you can add the sort of like add some sand on there as well, so you're dressing it. But definitely try and stick to the 2 as a minimum decompactions just into winter, and then just as you come in like springtime, something like that, late spring.
Steve, by all means, you've got your hand up. Please do unmute.
Yeah, sorry, a quick question there. I also heard that there's one that you can do verti-draining, but it sticks sand down the holes rather than just air, or allows the air in, allows sand. Is that a good idea or what?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I would say it is, but I would say that would be quite cost prohibitive because you're putting a dressing in there as well, and dressing is probably the single biggest factor that will drive up the cost of any renovation. It's not a cheap process by far.
Okay, I haven't looked into it yet, so
yeah. But I think that the thinking behind that is similar to if you are you do like solid tine aeration, you've got sand on your surface, you brush your surface and the sand will go down in there, and it tends to like keep your holes open for longer, and it provides a tailor-made sort of like route from the surface down into your profile.
Okay, thanks.
No problems.
Actually leads on to a question that we've got here, Phil, on one of the applications. So sand dressing to improve drainage and level out bumps, is it worth it? So I think that's kind of what you were just saying, isn't it?
Yeah, for dressing it is very, very expensive. And ideally, when I make my recommendations, unless your pitch has got a drainage system in there, on the whole, I won't recommend dressing, purely and simply for that reason. I'm trying to keep the cost down on the report. Now, if your pitch hasn't got drainage, then all you are doing is okay, there is benefit to restoring your surface levels, but these could probably be done with a smaller quantity of dressing in localized areas as localized repairs.
Okay, thank you. And just a question around priorities of grounds maintenance and how they carry out priorities. I think I can answer this one just in terms of on your pitch power report. I don't know if people are aware, but actually on the pitch power report, it's all listed in priority of what you should be doing in terms of maintenance. So if you do have that pitch power report, do refer back to it, because it is listed in priority as to what you should be doing in terms of grounds maintenance. But again, if you do need to double check any of that, then come through to me or go onto the Hive and ask those questions, because I will certainly speak to Phil and get his opinion on anything that you're looking to do, or you want a little bit of support on, or want to know if this is the right thing to do now, or should we prioritize something else, etc. So do come back to us on that. I think, Owen, I can see that you've got your hand up.
Thanks. I've got a bit of complaint about pitch power, actually. I don't know if you can feed it back. So we've obviously got to do, I've only got 6 pitches, and we've got to do a pitch power report for under the conditions of the grant, of course. and they're very useful, so there's no problem with that. But it is onerous. It does take me quite a long time to do. So it would be better if I could submit one pitch a month, and that would allow me to get 2 reports done a year per pitch, and maybe the benefits. I might see the benefits of the work that we're doing over a different period. So I don't know if you can feed that back, because I mean there was the other gentleman with 6 or 8 pitches as well, adult pitches. That must take a long time to do. So just an observation. For us personally, it would be better if we could just submit one pitch at a time per month, and then it would be less onerous for us.
Yeah, and I think the problem will be there is the amount of reports that will be coming in. Instead of one report for 6 pitches, we'll be producing technically six reports for sort of like one site. I mean, I appreciate it's very time consuming. So what I do say to a lot of people that I meet when I'm out on sites is it doesn't have to all be done at the same time. For people that have got multiple pitches on the site, when you go out and cut pitch A and pitch B, you could probably take all your readings from them 2 pitches, and then say next week you might be doing C and D. Just compile it over a couple of weeks rather than going out and doing it all in once. Yeah, but yeah, I can see where you're coming from. There's a lot of readings to be taken, especially the profiles.
No, fair point, and that would take a bit more planning on our part, I think, and with obviously with the work we do being weather dependent, of course.
Yeah.
That would be ad hoc, because I might plan to do it next week. It lashes it down with rain, and I don't go to site, and then that puts us back. And the next thing you know, the pitch power window's closed, and I've lost that. All that work I've done. So, but thanks for the observation.
Also, I think times might be a change. There's nothing concrete as such, but it may go to the point where you only have to do like one submission per year rather than 2. So that might take a bit of the burden off yourselves as well.
Yeah, because this is something that we've raised, Phil, isn't it, for our clubs and volunteers, that how time consuming it is. And although we haven't, like Phil said, we haven't had it confirmed, it is potentially that for the reasons of grass pitch maintenance fund, you would only need to do the 1 pitch power a year, but we haven't really been given the if that is going ahead or not, but watch this space and we will let you know. Obviously, Greg, I can see from the chat you've asked how often do you need to do reports. Just at the moment it's twice a year, but where we do think that it is going to once a year submission. And Phil, am I right in saying that the window is between November and March, isn't it? But the recommendations are kind of February time, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the compulsory window always used to be November to March time. Mm-hmm. And that's when the majority of the submissions have come in. That's pretty much when it needs to.
Yeah, and normally say kind of if you can get them in end of January, February, then that report is then there for you, ready to do kind of end of season renovations, and you can start to put your plans together, as Phil has obviously been saying during the webinar. Robin, you've got your hand up, so please do unmute yourself.
Thanks, Carrie. Quick one, Phil. We've got a few undulations, high spots, low spots on our pitch. So we had a quote to slice off the top areas, because the golf club near to us said that's the only way to do it. Slice off the high areas rather than fill in the low areas. And the quote was silly, like 20 grand. And we didn't have that sort of money. So what we did was the opposite. We filled in the small undulations with the soil, sharp sand and seed mixture. And then 3 weeks later, we did it again and we did it again. And that's come up all right. Now, is there any particular preferred way or a better way of doing it? Well, obviously, the golf club told us the other way, but it is too much money. So are we okay doing it the way we did it, or
Yeah,
should we not be doing that?
No. One thing I would be mindful of if you're doing that. I mean, it's always a good way to sort of like restore surface levels like as little and often. Not try and put it in a whole big heap. But one thing I would be mindful of is you take the turf off just underneath where you're gonna actually put this top dress in,
Right.
because underneath that turf you may have a thatch layer.
Yeah.
So if you've not taken the turf off, then added the soil and then reseeded on top of that, or put your turf back on top of that, whatever you choose to do, you might finish up with a thatch layer on the turf that you've just generated, and then a thatch layer lower down, which will basically become impermeable. So you'll sort of like set up a level that sort of like holds wet. Going back to your previous thing, the field top maker, which is I assume what they'll be using, something practice called like Coro. Normally you would take that off. It's more aligned to sort of like a renovation sort of like technique, where you'll take the upper layer off of your soil, and then the whole your pitch will be ameliorated again, which is basically all fluffed up and laser leveled and everything like that, and then your seed added to it. That's something that is a lot more common with professional football clubs, and it's something they tend to do every year.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions for Phil at all? So just to kind of wrap things up a little bit, just want to say, if anybody has any questions regarding pitch power, getting involved with the Grass Pitch Maintenance Fund, please do drop me a line, or again, actually in machinery as well. Do get in touch with me. Obviously, from today, you'll all have my email address. More than happy to help you put your applications together. Please don't be put off by the application process. That's what my job's there to do, to help support people to do it. I know sometimes when you look at these things, it can be daunting, but there are a couple of clubs actually, even on this call, that I've actually sat with and helped put the application in. So please don't, let technology put you off from doing that. I'm more than happy to do it. So yeah, please do get in touch. Just a couple of things, as Phil has already said, 10th of February, we're looking to do an end of season renovations webinar. So that information will come out a little bit nearer the time, not just yet from me, but yeah, so if you want to put a little mark in your diary, 10th of February, we'll be doing an end of season webinar. We're also considering in May time of actually doing an in-person workshop, where we'll be looking at kind of machinery, getting some examples of the machinery that you can look at coming in for funding for, things like the GPS line marker that people have been talking about, and also some of the things like the grooming tools and combination tools that Phil has alluded to. So we are actually thinking of doing that and getting some products down for people to have a look at, you to ask questions from dealers and things. So if you're interested in that, please do. I will send back send out a feedback form. If that is something that you think would be useful, then please do let me know, because that will be something we can put on. And again, if there's things that you feel that you would like to know from us, from the GMA, then tell me, and then I'm more than happy to put webinars together. Phil gives up an awful lot of his time for us here in Essex, so please do let me know. What's your hot topics that you want to know about? Is it snow? Is it dealing with ice? Just let me know, and I'll be more than happy to put another webinar together, and do that for you guys. So yeah, thank you so much for your time this evening. I will send out the recording, so if you want to listen out to anything, so it'll just take me maybe a day or two to get that out to you, and it will be on YouTube for you to use. So yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for giving up your time. And more than anything, thank you so much for everything you do for your football clubs. Without you, matches don't go on and games don't get played. You do a fantastic job, and thank you so very much. And Phil, thank you for your time tonight. I really appreciate it.
Hey, you're welcome. Thanks everybody for like listening, and the fact we got a lot of interaction is like really beneficial to all. I hope certainly beneficial to me. And as Carrie said, if we can have a few ideas and other webinars we can do, then we'll see what we can put together. Then we can get away from like the usual topics of sort of like maintenance and renovations. If we can find some middle ground or something that interests everybody, then we can certainly put something together there. But thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
Brilliant. Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your evening. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye, all.
Thank you.